Let's go back to the meaning of the archaeological research for the understanding of the changes in the material culture during the Babylonian period. First and foremost, from the finds at the excavation in Jerusalem, a clear picture emerges of the Babylonian destructions. Evidence for the destruction has been uncovered at different parts of the city, both in the city of David and in the western hill of Jerusalem. The city that populated thousands of people before the Babylonian destruction was totally abandoned. The surveys around the city demonstrate that this was also the fate of the villages and farms in a close circle around the city. All of them were destroyed and abandoned. The settlement that was renewed in Jerusalem in the beginning of the Persian period, in the time of the return, was small. In light of the scanty finds from the Persian period uncovered outside of the limits of the narrow reach of the historic city of David, it appears that the western hill was abandoned entirely until the beginning of the Hellenistic period. Only a small area inside the narrow reach of the city of David was populated during the Persian period, without any sign for a change during this time span. During all this long period, it seems that the proper way to define Jerusalem is as a temple, alongside of which there was a settlement for those who served in it, as well as a small number of additional residents. The first change in the status and population of Jerusalem occurred only during the 2nd century BCE, in the time of the Hasmoneans, when fortifications were built, the western hill was populated, and Jerusalem became again a real city. Summarizing the archaeological picture in Jerusalem and the region close to it, it seems that the region close to Jerusalem suffered a mortal blow at the end of the Iron Age, causing the evacuation of most of its population. This drop must be related to the Babylonian onslaught on Jerusalem and the blow probably suffered by the immediate environment of the city during the long months of the siege. The city remained empty and desolate, and also in the Persian period, it didn't renew its status. Let's move from Jerusalem to the lowland and have a look at the archaeological results of the excavations and surveys conducted there. Evidence of the destruction of the fortified cities in the Shfela in the early 6th century BCE may be seen as the opening of the door to the heart of the kingdom of Judah by the Babylonian army. Military logic dictates the assumption that a conquest of these cities was a prerequisite for the army's thrust into the mountain region. Control of these cities and the major supply routes that connect the coast with the mountain ridge were necessary for the continued siege of Jerusalem. The major evidence of the destruction comes from the excavation at Stratum 2 at Lachish, Tel Eduer. The site contains no evidence of renewal of the settlement until the late 5th century BCE, which points to its abandonment for an extended period of time. Furthermore, Lachish never reverted to being a part of Judah. The plan of the palace built in the center of the site, as well as the characteristics of its construction and the finds uncovered there, demonstrate that it was built by the Persian ruler. No conclusive archaeological connection can be made between the destruction of the other cities of the Shfela and the Babylonian military campaign. Nevertheless, this region contains evidence of a drastically dwindling population, and in most of the sites there are indications of a gap that lasted at least until the beginning of the Persian period. One can connect these archaeological facts to the ostracon discovered at the gate of Lachish, and the other evidence in Jeremiah 34:7, according to when the army of the king of Babylon fought against Jerusalem and against all the cities of Judah that were left against Lachish and against Azekah, for these fortified cities remained of the cities of Judah. Data from the archaeological survey that had been conducted in the Shfela since 1979 complete the picture obtained from the archaeological excavations. The total built-up area in this region in the second half of the 7th century BCE may be placed at approximately 900 dunams. We do not know whether the farms and small villages in the region were destroyed in one military campaign at the same time as the Babylonian offensive against the major border fortresses, or whether they were destroyed gradually during the 6th century BCE when the Shfela became a settlement and geopolitical frontier. In any event, it would seem that during the 6th century BCE there was a great settlement vacuum in the Shfela, because except for evidence of a settlement gap in the sites that were excavated, the archaeological surveys show that in the Persian period an entirely new settlement pattern came into being in the region. It may be assumed that the new area of settlement which sprang in the Shfela during the Persian period and continued to develop during the Hellenistic period is the result of a settlement vacuum that was created in the region during the 6th century BCE. This vacuum enabled new factors, Arabs and Edomites, to gradually penetrate into the region from the south up to the area north of Marisha, Bet Govrin and Lachish. This incursion was halted only with the re-establishment of the Judean settlement in the northern Shfela during the Persian period. The distribution of the sites during this period is part of the gathering into the area between Bet Shemesh and the Elah Valley. This is evidence of the western boundary of the province of the Bet Shemesh-Azekah line. There was, overall, a very insignificant presence within the limits of the Yehud province of the Persian period in the Shfela. According to the finds of the surveys, a total of 22 sites may be assigned to Judah within this area. In most of the sites, very few pottery sherds were found from the Persian period, testimony to a very low level of human activity.